Okay. All right. Okay. Let's finish up our lessons for the week. Let me quickly just share the screen, and we are going to be looking at music scheduling. So look here. Right, and this is it's a fairly long lesson theoretically, but then at the end there's a video that I want to play out that's going to be taking you through a not the playback systems because I think I put that into previous ones as well. We're looking at Zeta and stuff like that, but looking at a completely different music playback system that's used in the States, and I thought that would be quite interesting for you to enjoy. All right, so let's get into it. Radio 223 part timers, compiling music part two of six from Nash's and Cullinan's book, Next Level Radio. And we're looking at chapter 5.2. 5.2.2, playlisting pages 173 to 178. So when we're going to look at this, what we're going to look at as an overview in this particular lesson is how to begin to, pick the music, and again, in what type of processes and steps are included in approaching, your music database, and being able to start to balance that out, and obviously uh, being able to rotate music within your I say within your music, your station itself. Okay. All right. So in the previous lesson, we obviously discussed the basic. Well, not in the previous lesson. In previous lessons, we've discussed the basic system of two boxes of categories used in creating playlists at radio stations back in the 50s. And the method was originally used to create a system that rotated the current hits of the day. So if you remember back, it was where the guy, I can't remember now his name, but he was the guy that invented the top 40, the whole concept of the top 40. And there were the two boxes in the studio where, there was, the DJ was able to go and select, pick a tape or whatever it is. So obviously a tape that would have a particular song on, or whatever it may be, out of the one, and then, maybe one out of the other, right? And then we'll have to go and put them at the back of that particular row, etc., etc. And so he would start to have the rotation of those particular two boxes. In other words, being the top 40, and his first, obviously, conception of bubbling under, right? Um, and so began the whole concept of a music rotation. Eventually, two boxes became more plentiful, depending on the format, obviously, as we will see in this particular again lesson, but also as described previously, where you just saw there was there was an influx more of categories. If you are a music compiler working with different types of categories that we can name from A, B, C, D, E, E, knowing that we know what those particular categories are, and then having some labels according to category as well, like 90s, 80s, 70s, 2000s, or whatever it may be, um, and moving further along from that. Okay, so this burden was lightened with the introduction of the computerized music scheduling systems that we've come to know across, like as RCS or Music Master, a German music scheduling product. And these systems offer a range of options. However, these music programs are primarily driven by the following three um, core set of data, right? The one is obviously the electronic data. So this data includes not just the title and the artist of the song, but obviously several other bits of information that we do include there as well. So, for example, like the duration of the song, very important. Again, length of the intro, texture, the tempo, and the era, because we will depend. I mean, again, what we want to do is we want to automate the system at the end of the day, and we can contrast tempo, and we can contrast era, we can contrast texture, as well as Whether the song features a male or even a female artist, a vocalist, if it's a collab, etc., whether it is instrumental and so on, right? Some tracks can also be labeled as good hour starters, which kick off an hour of a program in the right style or tone, while others might have scheduling restrictions, limiting them to being played only at certain times of the day. So, in addition, this essentially comprises a song database that will contain the copyright details required for accurate reporting to the collection societies, in other words, for us, SAMRO over here, so that royalties can be issued to the artists, right? Right. Tracks for specific slots of the programming clock. These are required for music slots in the programming clock for each hour of the week. And this includes the specific category, style, or era of music that would be acceptable and the music limitations that might be placed on the slot. So, again, let's look at some scheduling rules. How would we now, again, with these systems, how would we apply rotation so that it can be balanced and obviously keep our listeners spending more time on the station themselves? Again, the rules are going to be applied now to all. We fix the, oh, well, not fix, we set the rules, right? And they instruct the scheduling system to, for example, avoid playing two songs from the same artist in the same hour as a basic rule, which makes a lot of sense because we don't want to hear, let's say, for example, two Justin Timberlakes, which even if it is a good old classic and it's a very, and other ones maybe like something like Selfish that's being currently killed everywhere. Um, because it's in high rotation and it's top 40 song, it doesn't matter. It looks kind of unprofessional, it sounds unprofessional, and would rather it not happen, right? These rules also specify minimum repetition intervals for songs in different categories. So again, I think that's quite straightforward to understand. And the program can then also be asked to avoid playing a song in the same day part. In other words, like mornings or afternoons or weekends or whatever it is, or nighttime, until it has been played at a specific number of times in that day. So, in other words, we get a high, obviously a very high, high rotation song, a very popular song, maybe a number one, two, three, four, five song on our top 40, and it must hit, let's say, a maximum of throughout, like I said, throughout the day, six times sounds about right as a good average, right? But no much, not more than that. Okay, but how do you know what music your listeners like? Obviously, you know this because we have discussed and many yonks ago, like I say, how we decide and how we go and focus group our AMTs, etc. So what you can apply those, so that you can go and then decide what rules you could or should apply to the program into your music scheduling system in order to obviously create the best output. Like I say, the playlist that is going to keep them there a little longer, right? So this is the first part, putting together a music playlist is the research that we go and do. In research collected by Johnson in 2008, it says that music states or tastes are neurological, programmed around the age of 15 to 21, in which time one begins to form a real identity of oneself. For instance, the sense of who you are, which is true, right? I mean, if you look at, let's say, yourself before the age of 15, you were listening to music, I suppose, as we're going to say as a child. I mean, you were a child, right? And when you're 14 and under, but not particularly saying, listen, I love I'm going to say, yeah, like you see, for example, I'm just going to use the ones that I like Fatboy Slim, or um like Fat Joe, or I'm using all the guys with fat in their name, right? But these are artists that I know for a fact I started enjoying a little bit later on in life. Definitely before the age of 15, it was all the people around me and what they used to play, and whether or not I would just play along, I suppose, enjoy along with them. And around, like I say, 15 to 21 specifically, oof, man, teen angst, specifically directed my teen years and your teen years, where you're trying to really move through your pubertic stages, right? Which play a massive role, obviously, on your emotions and your trials with identity and whatever it may be. And so you pick a lot of artists that have movement or that help you move, like I say, through different identity struggles, I would say, at that point in your life. But you really do start to sediment, and these are artists that will stay within your liking for the rest of your life. I believe that obviously after 21, you still and we still enjoy newer music. I'm saying, and you start adding to that massive, massive, massive database of who our favorite artists can and always will be as well. But I do understand that it does, and I do fully agree that we start to really sediment what it is that we like between the ages of 15 to 21. So this is the part of the reason why people still love the music that they listen to during that period of their lives. And Johnson applied his research to specific contemporary hit radio stations, the music policy as follows. Right. So the year at the time, 2016, was used as a benchmark. Um, the station's narrow target market, which is, and this is just again a specific station that Johnson obviously was researching, age 2024 was defined to find the years when they were 15 to 21 years old. These years were identified as 2000 to 2016. So, which then informed the narrow state of music that the station should or could play at the core of the station's music. So what did they do then? Again, this is quite. I'm going to read more because all the information is heavily presented here in the slide presentation itself. So let's move along with the story. Okay, a larger target audience, sometimes called the secondary audience, maybe the P2s, right? Was then also identified. The secondary audience comprised of aged people between 16 to 26. The years when these listeners were 15 to 21 were are they now? Oh, no, that doesn't make any sense. Where are they now identified as 2005 to 2016, which then informed the larger set of music that the station could play, or the bulk of the music. So getting the two together, obviously the two groups, and then just making sure that the range of the music timeline, right, could be more succinctly, I think, decided on is a good word to use there. The core of the music offering would therefore comprise music that was popular between 2007 and 2016, with a larger music scope obviously starting at 2005. And the station continued to use the strategy, which required that it regularly cleaned the music database, and that's very important in order to remain relevant to the target audience as defined by its strategy, right? Why do we keep doing this? Because newer people, obviously, between let's say again the target market is 20 to 24. There are new 20-year-olds that are going to turn 20 and obviously maybe are going to I don't know, relate more there with the station next year and the year after and the year after. We don't only obviously update music, or we shuffle our database around, or our music database around every year. It's a daily thing. That again has emphasized to say, I'm saying to you that compilers have a very, very busy and a very important job. Okay. So in February 2013, Thomas Geiger, wrote a case study after he was approached by a music director of a local Serbian station in East Europe. A music director asked for advice on how to reorganize the music database and format clocks. So obviously that it would obviously play more, in a manner that would be stronger for the audience, and they would really love it at the end of the day. It's very safe to also just say, and kind of just pause here just for a second to say that music scheduling is it is a very difficult thing to say. Listen, I know exactly how to do it perfectly because you don't. I'm saying to you as a compiler or a music manager, you don't. It is one person at the end of the day with a lot of obviously knowledge and obviously pro profession in understanding music, etc. With obviously again a vast understanding of understanding the software, right? And again the theoretics, right, of our clocks and of how radio works. I get that altogether, but it's still one person at the end of the day, and it's still a person that is doing their best, right, and continuously trying to do their best to apply what they know is to be is the best application, like I say, for the listener. So, is there perfection in it? No. Is there a station around the world that does it perfectly? No. But near perfection does actually exist. What are the different steps? Right. We'll do this in relation to the three sets of data that has been discussed. What happened in this particular case study? So one was that analyzed. There was an analysis to the radio market and the station, which is very important. Going out there, making sure that again those focus groups are done correctly, succinctly as well. So every playlisting exercise needs to start with an in-depth analysis of that target market. And this can be done using market studies and secondary research. We can do the easy way, I'm saying digitally, or we can do it, like I say, the long, hard way, which is the manual, very, very long, obviously, a person to person, process as well, right? Uh, so again, market studies usually indicate the market's favorite genres or music from specific years. From the case study of Geiger 2013, this is the beginning of the process and what is important to be able to put the music together. The radio station, it was a local station in Serbia. Two, the broadcast area, well, it was about 260,000 people. The target audience were young adults, 25 to 45 years old. The format was a Christian AC, so Christian adult contemporary, which is contemporary soft pop, pop rock, but obviously within the banner of Christian music, right? Music mix, both domestic and English songs, both gospel and secular music. I just want to blow my nose. Give me a second. All right, thank you. It is blown. All right. Okay. So now we know obviously what the structure of the station is and its external bells and whistles. Right. Second step was to review the music library that currently they do have and the categories that they are currently working with. So in the case study, if the station is not new, and it's really important to obviously look at what they are currently working with. If it's considered to be a quote unquote mess, why is it a mess? And then have to start while the station still runs, and this is something that we just did at our station, and it took long. It's still going on. Obviously, it's an ongoing process because, like I said to you, a music compiler's job just obviously shouldn't and never ends, right? But there was a changing point. There was a turning point where it was just the music was just all over the place. It sounded terrible, and again, even working for and on air, you're like, "Oof, ugh, like this is just it's just not good, right? But also I'm saying in retrospect, to when the music playlisting, I'm saying the database and again the playlisting was approached and reapproached and refurbished and repolished and whatever it is and restructured, you could immediately hear it. And the first reaction that all the on-air staff were like, just the music actually sounds really good. I really enjoyed today's show. And we would say thank you because obviously again we are the ones that first and foremost are the ones that are sitting there from the first bit of that hour to the very last bit of that hour in our shows, right? So in order to get a good feel for what is currently taking place, the current music library and what is going out on air has to be obviously analyzed. Geiger mentions that the Serbian radio station often played non-stop music and had a very large music library with about 3,800 songs in the English language catalog alone, right? And so what they want to push, obviously, some more local stuff as well. that is obviously within. Oh, I think what do they speak in Serbian? I'm not Serbia, and it's not Serbian. Or maybe I'm being very ignorant, and maybe that is what it's called. But it's obviously a Balkan language, right? The station had categorized songs according to decades as well as hits from 2011 to 2013. Number three, so use image rotation, right? Categories. So the Serbian station used other categories to rotate all of the imaging, which proved very convenient. So Geiger therefore recommended that music categories should rotate and position jingles, sweepers, and promos with fixed positions on the clock. And that made a lot of sense. And that also still makes a lot of sense, right? So that we can also get a fresh rotation of which type of jingles, are being played so that it's not always the same sound, same sound, same sound. But we have such a massive database also, sub database of imaging that would like a nice rotation. But also, again, the approach of wet and dry jingles, longer jingles versus shorter jingles, when and why we're playing each one of those as well, or a good, should I say, combination of each one of those is what we would sit back and select from. Geiger explains that the music playlist was initially considered chaotic at best. And if we look at the above mentioned music categories, right? Okay, you don't see it right here. Come Out the Station was playing music from the 50s all the way to the music of the present day, while they were aiming their station at a target market of 25 to 45, which doesn't make any sense, okay? Because people, even in their 40s, don't necessarily really enjoy 50s, songs from the 50s, really, unless it's within a specialized format, right? And we might hear that on the only station I can actually think of that does still play a number of 50 songs is LM Radio, predominantly right now as well. But again, according to your license, according to what it is that your listener is also demanding. So his first step was to define the exact music, what the station or that the station should have been playing actually. And always start by defining the top end of the target market. So, in other words, in this case, we want to look at the 45-year-old and then go back much further than the 35 years in music history, right? So, the formula is for this year, era's border, which is 2000, and look, I think it was 2013, right? Okay. And then move backwards, right? So the age of your oldest target listener is minus 10 years old. So the number of the years that you're going to go back, in this case, the answer is 35, which means 2013 minus 35, which is equal to 1978, would be the cutoff point, right? And nothing older. That would be considered an oldie, right? Anything from 1978 to maybe 1988, etc., right? So this is therefore the cutoff date for the radio station's music library. Okay. Um, Number four, or step four, play mass appeal songs only, right? So everything that has been a hit before within obviously the format of that particular station, and obviously what is liked by the listeners themselves. So once you've established your era borders, it's important to create a list of songs that reflect these era borders. So the most popular songs in the era means the ones that had the biggest appeal, which means people had liked them before, which means people will like them now. Again, we can't obviously play them in high rotation. It doesn't make any sense to be playing a song from 1982, even if it was very popular. We can't play it two or three or four times in a day. That doesn't make any sense. There's more popular music that people want to hear right now, and they're playing. I'm saying on their cell phones in the gym, like I say, on their way to school, whatever it may be. Right? They're shazamming. I don't know. Right? They want more of that and less of, even if it was the biggest set of 1992, right? Um, they'd rather be able to want to hear that. Here, auditory music tests should be used to help gauge or gauge appeal, particularly in the recalling the memory of certain tracks, and to create a library or category of music that the station will actually start to play. So what we will say in saying that, we will go and then minimize the library. the active library that we're going to actually put in rotation. So from maybe from 3,800 songs, we might find out now in just a moment it might be dialed down to maybe 1,200 songs. Let's wait and see, right? So number five, limit the number of categories. So then we're going to go and pick not too many, right? Maybe eight at a maximum makes sense, right? So A is the primary currents. So the very high rotation, big hits of the song or songs on their way up. Um, so again, a very top 40 style there. B is a secondary current, so a low rotation, new music or songs that are on their way up as well. Uh, R, recurrence, the best of the former currents from 2011 until now, right? D1, domestic classics 1992 to 2010. D2, domestic classics 91 and earlier. Um, F1, foreign classics 92 to 2010, and 2 is foreign classics 91 and earlier. And then 1 can be station imaging. So I think that's very straightforward. And that's also, it covers pretty much everything I say within obviously a station in general, right? So it's a good little I say prototype model, right, to be able to use. Right, even when you are starting with your own station, right? Fill the music, fill in those music categories, and that's what I'm saying to you now. It will start to filter down. Filling these categories is done by the AMTs. We run the mass AMTs. We get obviously responses. We get ratings for each of those particular songs, and we start to cull the fat. Right. So in this specific case, the music library was reduced from 4,500 songs all the way down to 650 songs. I thought maybe 1,200, but all the way down to 650. That means a lot of other songs were actually just not that good, right? Or really would not the style or the taste of this particular target market, right? So the following criteria should be used in the case of the Serbian Christian radio station to help them define what it is that they want to play out on air. One, format. Does the track actually fit the Christian AC format? Two, so is the track well produced? Three, is it the radio edit? Obviously, that within a Christian station, I would expect it not to have any kind of cuss language or whatever it is. But also it's about the length, right? So we don't want something that plays on for even 5.5 minutes is way too long, right? Maybe that the maximum 4.5, 4:45, maybe, but nothing longer than that. And is it suitable, obviously, for radio? The hook, does the track offer a catchy chorus? Familiarity, does the track offer a familiar sound? So is it going to resonate with the mainstream audience? Even if it is a new one, has it been a hit somewhere else or is it trending somewhere else? Accessible, will the track be accessible to most, if not all, of the demographic? International charts and trends was their international traction. And Tastemaker, could this be the next big hit? Are all the questions we asked to put into our database here. So once the categories are obviously filled, what happens is we design a basic format clock according to what? According to the categories that we went out and we defined here. So again, just to go from top to bottom, so we have there top of the hour, bottom of the hour, right? So let's say, so this is what the clock looks like in this order. We're going to start, let's say, at D1, a domestic classic younger, and a primary current, right? So again, something that's obviously popular, right? The imaging, we have a foreign classic older, a D1 domestic classic younger. Ideally, we'd like to put some imaging in between there. Otherwise, this indicates that a link should actually happen there, right? Okay. Um, Sorry, I'm just having a look there. Okay. So another obviously imaging recurrent hits, then obviously something that was very popular a few years ago, and people still love domestic classic older, then imaging foreign classic younger, and then secondary current. So that's from the top to the bottom of the hour. At the bottom of the hour, all the way back to the top, we play again a domestic classic younger, a recurrent, imaging foreign classic, kind of almost looks the same, right? D1 domestic classic imaging, a primary current instead of a recurrent, a domestic classic older, imaging foreign classic, and a recurrent hit. So almost, but not the same. And again, what is the aim of putting these in this particular order, right? And again, looking at this particular station, but this is a good, it's a good, I mean, it's a good structure, right? Ideally, what we'd want to do is start with our primaries first and foremost, within at the bottom and the top of the hour, to make sure that obviously people are listening off the news, and that's a big thing. They want to keep them there longer. But this is very sound. This is very cool, um, and definitely does the job of keeping them around. Right? Okay. Use format clock spin-off. So for every other hour, Geiger used an alternative version of this format clock for variety. As I said, there, if it's a busier show, you're going to have less music. And again, the elements that are included in the show, the news, the sports, traffic, and the adverts, whatever it is, will obviously influence on the type of music, the category of music that you're selecting for the when and the where. So he would then rotate these two format clocks within different week grids, and then this can be quite complicated. But obviously, what we can use is a computerized scheduling system, like I said, our RCS playback systems, right? That will go and then automate and generate those particular playlists for us if we have a sound, like I say, so obviously from start to beginning. I say so from start to beginning means like from the input from the very go, right, from our research to the input of the songs, the selection of the songs, to the labeling or whatever it is, all the properties of the songs are done accurately, to the filtering down, to then obviously the clock, and then obviously the output. That's when we know that we're going to have something good on our hands. Okay. Then finally, over here, we're going to set up the rules in the scheduling system. For example, scheduling rules can and do apply to the following: different programs of the day, different hours of the day, different day parts, morning, obviously, that's the day, and the night, right? Okay. Different days of the week, avoiding of playing one song is that same day part until it has been played a number of times, or a number of other times of the day, right? Quota requirements. Such rules typically require the computer system to avoid playing two songs by the same artist in the same hour, and specify minimum repetition intervals for songs in different categories. So here we go. What I want to do with this one is take you through. So I've added two links here. Okay, the one is obviously holiday scheduling, which I found very interesting and very cool, using RCS. But because I took you through so much of the RCS in previous, I think it was you guys. I think it was you, not the first years, right? Definitely, you can go and click and have a look at that. But here is what I want to do. So I'm just going to click here, and you can have a look at that. We can have a look at that together. Just gonna make sure I share correctly. Second here, share that sound. Here it is. Give it a second to just load. Very interesting once again.
Hey Buckaroo, welcome back to Musicom Academy, how to be a radio PD and a radio program director. Today we're going to move over to the computer virtually almost immediately, and I'm going to go through music scheduling software and actually let you see it. So let's do that right now. Everybody at some point has to deal with music scheduling software, whether you're describing it to your music director and you don't ever actually handle it at all, or you are actually doing it yourself, or like I used to do, I would set everything up the way I wanted it to be, and then I would give it to the music director to handle and explain what was going on. That's the way I like to do it. I want you to have that ability to do any one of those three ways to go. So what we're going to do is go into music scheduling software on this lesson, and it will be Music Master that I'm going to take apart for you, a little piece by piece, starting with the really basic stuff. So let's go to the computer now and we'll get into it.
One of the things I found as I've been doing these lessons is that I have to try to remember that
the original intent of this course was for people who have never been a PD. And at times I veer off into doing things because I think they're really important things that you should know for somebody who is a PD right now, maybe even has been a PD for 8, 9, 10 years. So I'm trying to straddle that line of going back and forth between, okay, you don't know anything really about programming, to you do know something, and I'm going to give you a trick or two or whatever that will help you along if you already know. This lesson is going to be very, very much about a basic lesson. And what I'm going to do is go through Music Master as if you know nothing about it. So you might want to look down below, because I'm going to do the times of where different sections of this is. It quite possibly could be that this entire lesson, if you're already a PD and you know Music Master or Selector or somewhat Power Gold, something else, that you may just skip this entire lesson and wait till next week's lesson. Again, I do a lesson one a week, and it would be Sunday night at midnight, Monday morning. I put a new one up. Let me just say right now that I sort of envision this thing going out to 40, 50, 60 lessons. I think right now there's 19 or 20 of them that are live, 4 or 5 in the can, and and a lot more to go. So anyway, this is Music Master for someone, and this is what this lesson is basically about. A lot of this anyway is you really don't know anything and you're hitting this cold, and what's it about and what do you do and what does it look like? So what I'm showing you on the screen right now is it's a typical A category, and that's what would generally be there. And you can set this up any way you want to look. I set it up this way because there are things that I think a jock would need to know. And then I'm going to go backtrack and show you how to set this up to actually get here, as if you were starting with a fresh, clean slate and there was nothing in here. And the typical stuff would be artist, the keywords, which I'll explain to you, but the keywords are basically how the computer keeps track of artist separation. And then obviously the title and the gender, male. These are usually, let me just see if actually it'll show you what okay, cool. So this is what, I'll show you how to set these up, but this is what would typically be set up. You're going to get a duet, duo, 2 people singing, male, female, 2 guys, whatever. Female, a group, an instrumental, or a male. That's the type of general song it is. Now, why would you have this? It used to be for a while, way too long actually. It made sense for the first couple years, but there was no 2 female songs back to back. That was really common. I mean, that went on for probably another 15, 20 years, where the original intent of it, the person, Bill Drake, who set it up in San Francisco, he wanted to make his station sound very, very different from the station he was competing against, which played a huge amount of women's songs. At the time, it was making a transition from MOR, with Patti Page and Rosemary Clooney and stuff like that, into his sort of top 40 radio station. So no other reason, just to sound different. He set it up, well, hey, you know what, let me slow the females down. I want to be more leaning into males because my competitor is very, very female-ish. Is that a word? Female-ish? So that's why that was set up that way. It was the only reason. So realistically, 3 years after that fact, where almost every radio station on the planet was, no 2 females back to back, it made no sense. It didn't fit their market in any way. Where it does come into play, depending on the type of station you have, where you might not want, like if you're doing smooth jazz with a lot of AC vocals, you would want to say, I don't want to have 2 instrumentals back to back. And out of 3 songs, I don't want to have 2 instrumentals out of every 3, or 3 out of every 4. So you can separate things by using these. But for the most part, all you're really going to be concerned with is this a male, a female, or a group? That's pretty much all that's going to come up. Anyway, so that's what that is. I set up a 5 tempo here, and I'll show you how to set these up. Slow, medium. To me, that's like got some tempo. Your foot is automatically tapping, and if you had all 3 codes, your station's going to have a really nice feel to it. 4, kicking it up a notch. 5 is, Get Out of Denver by Bob Seger. You're cranking. A lot of stations now, they're just doing like maybe a 1 and a 5, and the song is either slow or it's fast. It's either got a beat or it doesn't have a beat. So that's that. And what else we have? Sound codes. These are sound codes. Again, I'll show you how to set these up. These are the ones that are set up here on this particular one. These will be fairly typical of what you would set up. The Weeknd, this particular song, you could probably make a case for, this is kind of pop. But I think R&B is more prudent to just lean it that way. So, typical type of genre you'd put in here: alternative, R&B, country, dance, folk rock or some way of, maybe an easy guitar type thing, some way of describing it to yourself, because this isn't to the machine, this is to yourself. The machine doesn't even know what you're doing. It's just looking, if I see an F, and he's going to give me instructions if I see an F. Only you know what putting an F on a song means, because that F could just as easily not say folk rock. It could say rock. It could say R&B. It could say anything. You're the one that's setting this up. I like to, as I'm going through here, I like to actually use the letter that's closest to the description of what I want to do. It's easier to remember. R is rock, P is pop, L is love songs, H is hip hop, F is folk, that type of thing. So this is basically what this type of stuff is. Moving on, we got the ending of the song. Well, this is either going to be, it's going to be either fade out or it's going to end cold. Then there's day parting. Now, none of these songs are day parted, but what you would do, like I already showed you day parting on one of the earlier lessons, specifically how to do it. On Music Master, when you hit any one of these fields, if you hit this little square here, you get an idea of how to set it up. If I wanted to say, I don't want it to play, in Morning Drive, you'd put an X in Morning Drive, or however you want to do it, and it wouldn't play there. So that's pretty much what this is, and you'd set up each song one by one. For some songs, you wouldn't put anything because they're wide open, so there's no reason to day part them because they have no restriction. And then there's other things that come around. Let me just drag this over a little bit and let this thing go. See, like, you can put the year. I mean, there's a ton of different fields that help the computer work. For adding new songs, which is what we're going to do today, this is one of the, you kind of want to fill in what you're going to be using the most. You're not likely going to be putting the composer in unless you have some sort of a governmental thing where you got to put it in. The mood, you're probably not going to be using the mood. You might be using core or non-core. And if that was the case, then what I would do is I would actually grab this and you can move it over. Like, watch. I just selected that and I'm moving it. So if I move it over here, now it's closer. So I can get to it faster when I'm just filling in the things. But to just keep going, I'll just keep going across, categories of plays, the album it's from, most likely you're not going to care about that. Library plays, probably not going to care unless you're looking something up, file name, URL. For sure, you're not going to be worrying about any of that stuff. There's so much more you can put in, but where do you set these things up? How do you get this thing rolling where you can actually sit down and start adding a song? Like if I wanted to, like I could just, start right off here and put in, like a Lady Gaga and, just start typing it in. And what's going to end up happening over here probably, see there is no keyword, artist keyword for Lady Gaga, so you would put one in. And, again, you're doing the same thing. And hit OK. And now the next time you come through, that would be there. If I was going to add another Lady Gaga song, that would come up as a choice to just click. And then you put the title, you'd put the gender, obviously it would be female. Again, it would be, back to this thing. And so you'd click female, hit OK. And I don't know, let's just say this tempo is it starts off with a 1 and ends really fast. Let's just say it's some crazy thing like that. All right, and that's what it is. So it's telling the computer for a sweep, if it's playing a slow song going into another slow song that you don't want two really slow songs back to back, you could tell it that. So it's going to be looking and going, I'm playing a 1. He doesn't want me to play another 1 next to this, following it, and it'll avoid this song. And then the intro time, 10 seconds. Oh, you'd put 10 in there. 10 seconds, and there you go, and it's got a 10-second intro. Sound code, more than likely would probably be pop, as a guess. And let's just say, just because we don't have any here, we'll say this one fades out. Got it. Okay. And no day parting. Okay, so that's essentially what we're doing. Now let me go to show you where to set this up. And it's going to be very similar depending on the software. Somewhere it'll be in here and it'll look roughly like this. This again is Music Master. If it was something else, then, like selector, it would be in a slightly different position, but it's going to do basically the same. So I'm going to go to the data set, which is up here, data set. I'm going to go to the library, library maintenance, queue the library, add new songs. So if I hit add new songs, I'm going to get one page of this. Well, here, let's do it. Okay, let's add one song. Everything we were just looking at, but it's blank, and then you just start adding stuff. I'm going to go back, and this would be for quick moves. Some you might want to start moving songs around in a category, but we'll skip that for a second. So this is the setup of fields, and these are all the fields that you have to work with. I mean, there's a lot of them here. You see, a lot of these are things that you would never really realistically use. Maybe somewhere down the road when you get really adept at this stuff, you might go, hey, what's this do? And oh, I can do this sort of really weird way of adjusting the music. But for the most part, and I'm not going to go into that really for the course at all, but for the most part, you're going to be using the things that I show you, which are on the simpler end, which are more than enough to do an amazing radio station. One of the things with these, you really don't want to put a ton of different rules and restrictions on the system itself, because it'll continually keep throwing out errors. Can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. This thing you're asking me is in total contradiction with the first thing you asked me, that type of stuff. So you don't really want to get into that. You sort of want to stay down on the basics, make sure they're running well, what you want, and then there's a few other things that you can kick up into. So anyway, but these are, there's a lot of choices here. And some of these things that are on here, there are things for reports that you won't really, you have no control over, like weeks on. Like if you add a song, if you added it this week and 5 weeks from now, you want to go, hey, how long have I been playing this? It'll tell you. Well, you've been playing it 5 weeks. But that's not something that you're really doing. It's just keeping track of it. Same thing with peak weeks, peak position, peak month. The year you're going to put in, it'll just sit there. You're probably not going to do that much with it. So anyway, just to give you an idea, that's what here. Again, I'm doing this course really basically for people who have never seen this, and I don't want you to be hitting it and be overwhelmed if you have to hit it blind going, what the hell is all this crap? At least you've seen me go through it and know that, yeah, this stuff doesn't really matter all that much. Okay, so let's go back to the data set and go back to the library and go to categories. And this is where you would set up your category. So if you wanted to add a category, let's see what's open here. What letter isn't open? H, I, J, K, L. How about M? So let's add a category. We'll add category M. All right. And category name, what should we name it? Mushy. How about mushy songs? Oh, yeah. There we go. Mushy songs. Mushy songs for the Love Song Show. I don't know. So, all right, now we got a category. Where is it? Where'd it go? No, it's at the bottom. Now we got a category for mushy songs. All right, good to go. So let me open that back up again. It's a music category. Sometimes it may not be a music category. It may be non-music category, which would be something like imaging, promos, that type of stuff, if you wanted to use that for it. And what was the last thing? Oh, that was the last thing. Okay, so that's how you would do, add a category. I'm not going to add this because I really don't want mushy songs in the category. Back to data set in the library, keywords. Now these keywords are going to be keywords for the titles. You can tell that, Hard Day's Night, New World Record Night at the Opera. This actually, what I'm using here is a classic rock database to go through this with. But it's picking up the titles. Because you may not want, like we had done again in an earlier lesson, usually where it comes up is Christmas songs. You have 15 versions of A White Christmas by a whole bunch of different artists. You can keep separation on the title, so that's what it's doing. It's got keyword for, in this instance, it's doing it on titles. Similar type thing though would be, let's go back to data set, library, go back to attributes, and here's where we get into the really interesting stuff. Now we're starting out on this one, it opens almost every time to core and non-core. If you want to use it, is this song, every time you add one or go back through later, say you're walking into a radio station, nobody has ever used this particular attribute, which is basically just a file that's attached to a song. That's essentially what it is. Each song is going to have a whole bunch of things that somebody cares about the song, some sort of a descriptor, and one of them that you can use is core or non-core. And this can come in handy. Let me see if I can give you an example of this. I was recently on the board of directors of a jazz radio station, Jazz FM in Toronto, really wonderful jazz radio station, but it was having trouble they went through an upheaval. Let's just leave it at that. But the station did not have a PD, and I was on the board of directors, so I was the only person who really knew programming, so I kind of had to go in and fix some things because a lot of stuff was kind of messed up. The rotations there, it was in weird shape. Now, they had a really old version of Selector there, and so I had to learn Selector and fix things on the fly at the same time. But again, just like what I'm trying to explain to you, if you know what you're looking for, you can usually find it. I essentially did this, except on Selector, because it was a really old version of Selector. Matter of fact, it was so old that when we would call New York and call the head office for Selector, they had to find somebody that knew the version, from memory of what I was asking them questions about, because I didn't know Selector, but I knew what I was looking for and I knew what I wanted to achieve. And that's key, even more so than actually knowing the software. What are you actually trying to accomplish? And then basically you can just say, hey, this is what I want to do. Where is it? Show me where it is on the software. So what I had to use to accomplish this, what I'm about to show you right now, I had to use sound codes. So I made a sound code essentially for a core artist, where in Music Master here, because this is the newest, latest version, version 7, it's already built in. So what I did was, to me, when I listened to the jazz radio station, and we did the exact same thing with a rock radio station, I'll explain that in its entirety in a later lesson, because that can stand to be a lesson unto itself. So anyway, with this jazz station, my sense was, as I was listening to it, and I don't really know. I'm not a jazz buff. So I don't know these songs. I'm just a regular person who would tune into the station every once in a while to get away from everything else. I mean, that was essentially it. But I listened to it and I found it, man, this radio station is really hard to listen to, because they would go through some stretches where wow, these are nice songs. I like these songs, or I was familiar with them, or whatever. And then you'd go through really long stretches where they were really heavy-duty improv songs. No melody that you can pick out. So to a non-fanatic jazz buff, they're brutal. They're like torture. They really were. So what I did, I sat down with the music director who was really into jazz and knew jazz, and I said, okay, I don't want to change the radio station. I don't want to add in pop or some other weird stuff. I want to stay in the jazz mode, and so no one can ever say, well, this is not a jazz radio station anymore. So I just took that right off the table. We were only dealing with jazz, but I went in to find the songs that would be more mass appeal, okay, more mass appeal than the other songs. So I'll give you as an example. If I say to you Frank Sinatra all the way, I don't think there's a person alive that doesn't know what that song is, who's going to be listening to a jazz station. Or pretty much any one of the Louis Armstrong songs, or Ella Fitzgerald or Sarah Vaughan, and a ton of other acts where you listen to it and you go like, oh, I know that song. My parents used to play that. Or I've heard that a ton of times. I've even heard it on like an American Idol or Britain's Got Talent, when they go back and they play the classics. Essentially, they're the American standards that are worldwide known, that type of stuff. So to me, what I did is I used the sound code, which would be exactly this. And so because you can do this any way you want, you're just using software to get to your answer, what you want to do. I said, for the Sinatra, for the Louis Armstrong, for the Sarah Vaughans, for those songs where I knew, including instrumentals, there were a decent amount of instrumentals by Miles Davis and John Coltrane, super classics, that I knew what they were. And again, I'm not a jazz buff, so I have to assume like, okay, these are like gold. These are like golden songs that everybody's going to know. So I made that with the sound code core. I wanted those to be the core songs, even though on a jazz station they probably would not actually literally be core. But for the sound that I wanted to set up for the radio station, I made them core and then told the machine, I don't want to be any more than 2 songs away from one of these songs. A jazz person hears nothing but jazz songs. To them, it's full-on jazz. For a non-jazz person, a casual listener who just wants to come in, they're hearing still a jazz radio station, but it is way more friendly to their ear. They would hear more than they would under the normal circumstances of the way the station was. You can do this in any kind of format at all. You just have to think it through. It's like, well, what would I want to accomplish by using this? So this can be a pretty cool attribute. If you see attribute, that's what they're calling him here. But let me just show you the other ones that are here. You can set up the gender. Now, if I wanted to add something, a different kind of gender, here, let's do one here just for the heck of it. Let's just say I wanted, I don't know, but you could go, hey, I'm gonna have thing for trans. It's up to you to put it in. You can do anything you want and use any letter that you want. Back up to data set, back up to library, back up to attributes, and okay, so that's gender. And then the mood. This was in here. I didn't put this in here, but you get the point. It works the same way. I have no idea what they're getting at for mood. I guess probably since this is a sample classic rock radio station, I would assume this is like, really slow. Okay, this is okay. This one, the mood of this one feels okay, and this is probably something like Sympathy for the Devil or something that's just really cranking along, or Start Me Up or whatever. I'm assuming that would be what that is. I've never really used mood. No matter what kind of station I've built, I've never used it. I've never used it on a jazz station. I did a smooth jazz station, never used it there. AC, upper end AC, which would be a really soft one. Soft rock, top 40, never used it. I just didn't see the need for it. And again, also, you don't want to bog the software down and, beating it into the ground where the thing's going, I give up, I can't do this. Dude, leave me alone. All right, so sound codes. This is where you would set up the sound codes. You know what? Let's change this right now. Let me just put that singer-songwriter here. And this is where if you wanted to add something, you could add it like we added touchy, before in the other category because it wasn't there, but you can also set them up and add it here. Let's move on. Back to data set, back to library, back to attributes. Let's go to tempo now, and these are the tempos. If you wanted, you could just keep adding letters. If you wanted to go to, I don't know why you would, because that probably would be overkill, but you could take this out to 9. So that's the attributes, and this is where you would go if you wanted to set any one of these 5 things up: core, non-core, gender, mood, sound, and tempo. Now let's get out of this. Back to data sets and library, and again, we went through this in an earlier lesson, but I'm going to go to packets. So just tap on packets one more time. If you wanted to make a packet, this is where you would do it. I don't remember right now as I'm doing this off the top of my head, but the lesson that we went into how to make packets, way more thorough than I'm going to do now, because I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to put that on the screen so you're seeing it right now on the screen, whatever that lesson was. And back to data sets again, back to library. What's the last one? Trivia. Oh, trivia. Well, okay, if you had a song and you wanted to put something in there about it. I have never used trivia for any of the radio stations that I did, but when I was overseeing the jazz station, there was a ton of trivia stuff there. A lot about, who was playing bass, who was the drummer, what was the album it was from, because that's information that is given out a lot if you're doing a full-blown jazz station. Lastly, what's on here also in the library is the last things at the end: song list editor, chart editor, export, enterprise, synchronize. I'm not going to go into them here. I may not even go into those at all, really. They're more like maintenance type stuff that probably your music director is going to be doing more than you're going to be doing, unless you're on your own, and then you would probably need to learn this. That wouldn't be for this course. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. This whole entire lesson really has been for people who are hitting this cold. They've never had to deal with it, and what is this? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a little lost, or I'm scared, or whatever. Just kind of want to tool you up a little bit that, okay, this is what it is. It's not that scary. It's not a big deal. And, again, if you've listened to this lesson, once or twice through, you get a handle for, which might be the most important part of this, the stuff that you don't need. You're not going to need a whole bunch of this stuff. You can add a new song from here, but you can also just add it, just by going to the category like I showed you. You're going to need the fields. You're definitely going to need the categories, but you're only going to need to set the categories up one time, really. You're not going to have to mess with it after that. Keywords sort of will take care of itself. You will have to set the attributes up, but usually one time, and then you'll just keep getting them as you add new songs. You'll be using what you've already set up. Packeting will come up every once in a while when you want to packet songs. As a matter of fact, that will actually come up, fairly regularly. Trivia, you may not use it at all, and then this other stuff, probably not going to use it. So, you're looking at a bunch of things here, but in reality, there's only, I don't know, after you set them up, there's like, what, 2? Again, it's not scary stuff, but it just looks that way when you first encounter it. So there you go. This is Music Master Selector, or any other music scheduling program is going to operate pretty much the same way. And if you have one of those other ones and you're a little bit lost and you can't figure it out, just call their home office and go, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm looking for. The holiday guy telling me to look for, keywords or sound codes or whatever. I can't find them. Where are they? And the guy will take you through it. Or the woman on the phone, she'll go, all right, well, see that pull down? There it is. Oh, okay, good, thanks. Hang up the phone and go about your business.
Very cool. Learning something, huh? As we move along. All right, I think that'll be that for them this week and this lesson on music scheduling. And I hope you learned something. I will see you in class for the very last lesson for the semester 1 next week. Cheers.